So we're back again after a bit of a break with the AGFA and 101 films. And it's going to be a little different this episode because we're not looking at a feature or a couple of features. We're actually looking at a bunch of short films. We're taking a look at the Scare Film Archives Volume 1, Drug Stories. Now this is a collection of anti-drug PSA films shown primarily to kids in the US around the 50s to the 70s. I'm not fully sure, I think there's 11 short films on this disc, but it is a little vague, not fully sure. But judging by the runtime, there's a lot to get through on this one. So I figured the best sort of plan of action with this is each section is just going to be talking about the next short film. And I don't know how long these reviews are going to be. There might be a little bit of repetition, but I'll try my best not to repeat myself. So the reviews might actually get a little shorter as they go along. I'm not fully sure. Each one might be a masterpiece in its own right, or each one might just feel like exactly the same as the last one that I just watched. Who knows? All I do know is there's a hell of a lot to get through on here, so let's just get started with the first one.
Hey kiddies, gather round, the man with the goodies is here. Here's a little beauty for me to Udy. Just inhale and sniff, it is aeroplane glue.
Okay, film number 1 is Beyond LSD from 1967, directed by Paul Burnford. This being his last film, apparently. And the film stars a guy called Phil Harvey, who has a few credits here and there. He was in A Touch of Evil, which sort of stood out to me. Weirdly progressive start to these films, if I'm completely honest. Instead of just being like bizarre, in your face, and just trying to scare you by any means possible, it takes a bit more of a nuanced approach in being... It's more targeted towards the parents, I guess, than the kids, and the idea basically is talk to your kids and demystify drugs, and that will prevent them from doing it, as opposed to don't do drugs, kids, they're very scary, here's a lot of misinformation to scare you. Wasn't expecting it, especially from something from the 60s as well. The sort of structure for this is that we see a bunch of like clips of things like parties, car crashes, accidents happening, and it turns out these are all being shown to a group of adults. They are then asked how many of these bad things were caused by LSD, and they all freak out. All of them were. It's not the case, apparently only one of them was, and it's just sort of trying to prove that, you know, people get carried away and caught up in the rhetoric about these big scary things that are happening. We then cut to a guy, a doctor, Dr. Wright I believe he's called, and he then just sort of shows us some more clips of teens and stuff. It gets a little dry towards this point, just sort of talking about teens and what they're going through and how you can help by not treating them like idiots. So yeah, wasn't expecting it to be quite as progressive, you know. There's some funny acting in here as well, you know. It's a nice little time capsule of the 60s. You got the LSD scare, you got the fashion of the time, the styles, the music. It all feels very 60s and it's kind of fun. 23 minutes, it's not overstaying, it's welcoming anyway. Yeah, it's inoffensive. It's not going to blow anyone's mind. It's not doing anything that's like hilarious and you need to watch it because it's so stupid. But it's also not doing anything that's like groundbreaking and amazing or anything. It's just a sort of standard scare film, weirdly aimed at adults. It's watchable. It's watchable. The print is a little rough. It's definitely seen better days, but I think we're going to find this with a lot of these, that they weren't necessarily treated well. I'm guessing they've been shipped around schools and like town halls to be shown to parents and stuff. So they're probably not in the best nick. The beginning and end are very, very scratchy and dirty. But yeah, didn't have a horrible time with this one. Interesting way to crack things off, I think. So I said I'm ranking these. Obviously this is the first one. Nothing to compare it to, so it's just going to sit right there in the middle of the list. I'll put a little thing here. It's just going to be right there in the middle.
The boy in the ambulance? Yes. This one is...
A young lady does not go out in public without her shoes.
Nancy was testing.
Danger to him of long hair, even though we may not like long hair, because we can't tell the boys from the girls. And when we read in the paper about a sensational story that this or that drug is either instant happiness or instant death, let's keep our cool, as the kids say.
Right, film 2, The Bottle and the Throttle. This is a 1968 anti-drink driving film directed by, well, produced by Sid Davies Productions. Couldn't find an actual director, maybe it was Sid Davies himself. Who knows? This is the 1968 colour version. Apparently there's a 1961 black and white version as well, which is just a bit shorter, I think. It's done by the same production company though, so it might just be exactly the same thing. Basically, he really wanted to hit this message home with people, so he did it twice. Fair enough. This is more in line with what you would think of as a scare film. It's not really trying to do anything funny or silly, and it's not really got anything stupid in it. Instead, it's just a little more in your face, I guess. A narrator is berating a guy for drink driving. This guy then hits a mother and daughter. We then see some cool infographics, probably my favourite part of the thing, some 60s infographics on what alcohol does to the body and how it impairs you when you're driving. And then we find out that the dude has killed the little girl and disabled the mother for life. Whew, very grim, hard-hitting stuff. And this is it, really. It does what it does, and it does it well, you know. It comes in, it's only 10 minutes long, comes in, slaps you in the face, and leaves. And that's all this really needs to do to be effective. Saying that, I didn't enjoy my time with it as much as the last one, Beyond LSD. I am going to rank it just below Beyond LSD. And I've realised that the whole ranking thing is probably a little vague, a little weird. And I probably need some more criteria as to how I'm ranking these things. So I'm ranking these on the basis of me being a consumer who went into HMV and bought this Blu-ray for entertainment purposes. So the way that I'm ranking these short films aren't on their effectiveness as scare films, they're more on the entertainment factor as something worth owning and watching, laughing at with friends, or watching for educational purposes, or just for curiosity's sake. It's more of an entertainment thing than is this still effective nowadays? Has this scared me efficiently, you know? So because of that, yeah, it does rank below, lower, because it's less entertaining because it's just pretty grim, to be honest. So that's all I've pretty much got to say on that one. Let's move on to the third film, shall we?
Liquor enters the circulatory system through the stomach. It's oxidized by the liver and turned into heat energy in the form of calories.
So the next one is Curious Alice from 1971, directed by Dave Dixon, coming in at about 12 minutes. And I watched it with some friends. So what did you guys reckon to Curious Alice?
Well, having never done any drugs
Of course.
in my entire life, or drunk anything or anything like
Of
that,
course.
done any kind
We're
of...
good boys.
We're all good boys here, really are. I now want to do all the drugs.
It's very alluring, isn't it?
Very
So it's basically following the Alice in Wonderland story, but what is usually subtext is just, oh no, they're all on drugs, and it's like, well, yeah, sure. It's the equivalent to those YouTube videos that were like, what if the mushrooms in Mario were actually a drug?
Yes.
It's just that from
Yeah.
the 70s,
Yeah.
really, isn't
Yeah,
it?
100%.
But it's animated,
Which is interesting.
which is cool.
Yeah.
It's the first
Yeah.
one in this that's actually had pretty much entirely animation.
Yeah.
And it's that old sort of 70s cutout. Looks very like Eastern European
Yeah,
animation.
tracing
doesn't it?
paper design, sort of like weird, like they even chuck some
like
colour burst effect type
Yeah.
things in it.
Photography
It's
as
very
well.
Yeah, that's
Using
yeah.
cut out
Yeah.
photos. So what did you reckon then, Carl?
I liked it, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it don't shy away from anything, to be honest.
No.
Yeah, it's very colourful, very trippy.
Would you say it's effective for getting kids off of drugs?
If I was at a young age, seeing that, definitely.
You reckon?
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's a little
Yeah.
too nonsense for me. I'd have been like, I don't really know what the fuck's going on.
Well, that's
Yeah.
Colours and shapes. Ooh.
yeah. Ooh, like,
Yeah.
it's almost like a kaleidoscope. Watching a kaleidoscope just
Does
sort
make
of
you
go
feel
around.
a bit tripped
Tripper,
out
yeah.
though while
Yeah,
you watched
definitely.
I
it.
genuinely
definitely.
felt like I'd had
Weird
something.
movements
Yeah.
and such, isn't there?
Weird sort of, because the animation is very, these the stills of the girl that ends up being kind of animated, but they use her photography, like actually photograph her face
Yeah.
for the bits where
Yeah.
she's, you know, pulling faces, and it's all very, that's all, yeah, a little bit surreal. It's got a
odd,
weird,
yeah.
it's got a weird mix, and it's because I weren't expecting anything animated or whatever that kind of vibe of animation is. I was expecting like a
Definitely,
black and white sort of just don't do this, drugs are bad. Whereas that just had a complete. It was almost like they literally did just tell the story of Alice in Wonderland in
Yeah.
12 minutes
Yeah.
and interject the Mad Hat's Tea Party is everyone's just downing
Doing
pills and doing
Yeah.
different types of LSD and it was kind of like, hey, what if at Alice in Wonderland at that tea party they just did loads of drugs?
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Yeah.
there was no.
Because this is the thing, it's not subversive in the case that Alice is disliking Wonderland because they're on drugs, because she doesn't like Wonderland in the book. She's like, this is horrible,
Yes,
I want to
yeah,
leave.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
not like it's doing anything different, it is literally just telling the story of Alice in Wonderland apart from the caterpillars smoking a joint.
Yeah.
That's
Which
the-
was actually one of the highlights, and the
It was good, yeah.
The
music was fun.
And for me, the music was, it had that library sounds. They'd just gone in and got a load of sounds, messed about with it a lot, and that was actually the best stuff, because that was actually quite psychedelic, quite trippy stuff, and it did that for me. Had made it more interesting, whereas everything else was just like, what you're trying to sort of convey here, I guess, is the.
Yeah.
So entertaining, definitely.
12
It does
minutes.
its job. Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely takes you on a journey.
Well,
I feel.
this is the thing that I'm mentioning in some of these as well, that obviously I'm not watching these as a child at school who's trying to stray away from drugs.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these as an adult who's looking for some entertainment.
Yeah.
And I think that it hits the entertainment factor while maybe lessening on the effectiveness.
It's definitely got entertainment value.
It
so
does,
so like
yeah.
top, like as far as like putting out a release from AGFA, I think like 10 on 10 for like just putting out something that's actually like
It's
quite
interesting.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a curiosity piece, isn't it? It's
It
definitely
is,
got that vibe to it. So,
So I'm going to wrap this up by saying this is the best one so far, so top of the list, and we're just going to do a bunch of drugs now.
Oh, wow. Mommy or the doctor wouldn't have anything to do with this. Oh, hi. I'm Alice. Hello?
6
I'm-
o'clock. Tea time. Time to take a pill.
Next up, we have The Distant Drummer. Now, this is actually a small part of a 4-part documentary series. And the section we have here is called The Distant Drummer, a movable scene. It's not credited as such on the disc. I'm not really sure why. If you're watching it and you want to log it on Letterboxd, that's the name of it. It was made in 1970, directed by William Templeton and narrated by Robert Mitchum. It comes in at 21 minutes, and yeah, you feel it. It's the driest one yet. Easily the most boring one yet so far. It takes a look at different drugs and why kids do them. All with a few interviews and stuff, and then just this narration that's a very sort of passive-aggressive, telling off, judgy sort of tone. Yeah, I don't know. It looked at kids flocking to Istanbul for enlightenment, and that's probably the most interesting part about this, I think. But yeah, it's just super dull. Really dry. Now, this was mentioned in one of the other ones. I don't think I mentioned it, but there's a clip in one of the other shorts that we've watched where the adults hate the hippies because of the long hair, and it means they can't differentiate between whether they're girls or boys. And this is again brought up in this review. Was this such an issue? Was this such a scary thing at the time, not knowing if someone was a boy or a girl? Probably in the 60s and 70s they were scared of that. I don't know. Seems really silly by today's standards, to be honest. But yeah, they seem to keep bringing that up. And what's long hair got to do with drugs, really, as well? I don't know why that's the case. It's so stupid. I want to mention as well the narrator, after doing this film, was caught smoking weed at a party and was arrested, despite his very judgmental tone throughout this whole thing. So that's kind of funny. And I lastly want to mention the Knockoff Doors soundtrack in this, which I really enjoyed. Very of its time. It fit. It was nice. I liked it. The print on this is very rough shape. Lots of popping and dirt. Mostly as well, this film unfortunately is just pretty forgettable. Right at the bottom of the list. And we'll just move on from there, I think.
The experience is shared to such an extent that roach pipes are always in demand. A roach is a marijuana butt, and it requires some form of holder for those last few drags. The new generation, if their aimless searching is a thinly guised excuse to evade responsibility, then in effect they have not escaped at all. For even at the threshold of Shangri-La, they become the focal point of world concern.
It's in every living entity. It's that energy that we can't know about before we're born, and the energy that's going to happen to us when we die.
Next up, we have Drugs, Drinking and Driving from 1971. This was produced by Charles Cahill. I have to keep looking at my phone because I keep forgetting the guy's name. And the runtime is 18 minutes. This one does what it says on the tin. It is an anti-drinking and anti-drug driving film. It shows what drinking and what drugs do to your body and how they can impair driving. I'm mixed on this one, really. It has some nice 70s graphics and some fun reenactments. There's also an experiment in this one, which is a first. It feels like a little more effort was put into this one. But it's a little long and a little dry for its own good. And the Mission Impossible theme plays far too often in this, and it wears thin super quick. Yeah, it's... I've not got a whole lot to say on this one, to be completely honest. It's not hilarious, it's not entertaining really, but it's not terribly boring. It's a nice little time capsule of the era, and I'm straight down the middle. It goes straight in the middle, and that's about all I can really say about this one. Next one sounds interesting though.
A few years ago, I was a police reporter. I was troubled with hay fever and asthma.
Used up his reserve energy at a faster than normal rate. He collapsed and slept for 18 hours.
Across the street. Apparently, she never knew what happened.
LSD, Insight or Insanity? Great title. This is more what I'm after with these sorts of films. So this is from 1967 and it is directed by Max Miller with narration by Sal Mineo, coming in at 18 minutes long. This is it. This is what I want from these sorts of scare films. A film that is not afraid to get a little weird. Obviously its focus is on LSD. It looks at why teenagers take it, the effects that it can have on the body, obviously leaning more toward the negative effects. And it ends by comparing taking acid to Russian roulette, which is quite the statement. All this is accompanied by some trippy visuals and some free jazz, which is my kind of thing. Yeah, it's fun. You know, there's some interesting facts about acid in here, but then it's not afraid to get trippy and weird and shove some visuals in your face to try and scare you. Whether it effectively scared anybody or not is another question, though, because I don't know about you, but the sort of trippy visuals side to these sorts of things never really scare me. They just seem more enticing. I'd say especially if you're like a teenager and you're watching this and you're looking for a bit of a thrill. Like, the trippy visuals are going to make you want to try it even more, aren't they? Surely. Outside of that, though, it's a fun little time capsule of the era. That was Beck, by the way, if you heard that noise. She's jumping and missing the windowsill. Where was I? Yeah, it's a fun little time capsule, you know, the clothes and the music of the era. The interviews were fun with the kids as well, quite stilted and awkward, but fun. And yeah, the print's a little choppy, but to be honest, it's just a miracle that any of these have survived, really. It does that again, I mentioned it earlier, and it was in another one as well, where it's this big issue that the adults hate the long-haired kids because they don't know whether they're boys or girls. It's super petty. Why was that an issue? It's so petty. But yeah, that came up again. Must have been a real hot topic at the time. So yeah, I really liked this one. This is fun. This is going just behind Curious Alice. More of these sorts of things, please. I'm hoping for more of these from this disc. Let's see if we can keep the good things coming, shall we?
But how much shorter can a skirt get? Very, very cool. Very, very groovy.
Another good one, lucky us. We're looking at LSD 25 next. Now this is directed by David Parker. Sorry, again I have to keep checking. There's a lot of names in this video. David Parker from 1967, and it comes in at 25 minutes. As you can probably guess, once again, this is another acid scare film. But this one takes a very different approach, with acid itself narrating this one. And it's weird because as a scare film, I don't actually know how effective this is actually gonna be. It spends the first chunk of this film saying how good acid is, just sort of enticing you. Makes it sound fun and interesting and something cool to try. Then it sort of leans more into the bad side, the negative impacts, and it ends on a bit of a foreboding atmosphere. I quite like it. I think it works well as an entertainment piece. Yeah, there's some fun costumes, some 60s hippies, you know, costumes of the era and stuff. There's even a bit in a record shop, which I always like it when things go into a record shop, especially from, like, in the past. You get to look at what old records are knocking about and stuff. It's fun. The music's good as well. It's the music that is used on the Blu-ray menu, so I've heard it a lot. But yeah, it fits with this. It's pretty good. I don't really know how effective as a scare film this is, because as I said, it leans more into that idea of it's kind of fun, it's not addictive, you can't OD on it. They just said really it's a bit of a gamble, really. You might get a bad dose of acid, but I mean, seafood can be a bit of a gamble, and people do that all the time, don't they? So it's not really that off-putting. Yeah, it's sort of, it's honest, I guess, about it, which is interesting. It leans more as well into that idea of it's dangerous because you're getting it from dodgy places, and like the backstreet chemists might accidentally mix a dangerous compound, which again leans more into the idea of maybe if it was legalised and regulated more, then it might be a fine thing to do along with drinking and smoking cigarettes. I say fine, obviously they're bad in their own way, but they're legal, you know? So it's weird that it has that sort of angle. Yeah, I wasn't scared while watching it. But yeah, it just made it seem interesting. But it was fun. I liked the gimmick, I liked the style. It didn't feel overly long. The print wasn't awful, it was fine. For these anyway, it was okay. Yeah, I think in fact I even preferred it to the last one, although the last one had more trippy visuals, and it was lacking a little bit in this one. I don't know, it flowed pretty well and it was an interesting take on it. This one goes to second place now, just behind Curious Alice. Let's move on to the next one.
They're damaged for life, their brains are wrecked, they go into institutions, they're through for the rest of their life.
You just have to trust your source.
Well, when you take it, you find out.
Next up, we have Narcotics, The Decision, Goofballs and Tea from 1958. This is directed by Robert W. Larson. Again, I have to keep checking. Robert W. Larson, and narrated by Art Gilmore. Coming in at 26 minutes. This is a shorter version of a longer film that comes in at 75 minutes that's just called The Narcotics Story. Honestly, I prefer the AGFA naming on this one. Goofballs and Tea. Love it. This follows a girl's life from smoking a joint casually with friends to getting hooked on heroin. And it's quite matter-of-fact and very dry. It does exactly what you'd imagine it to do, really. There's no trippy freak-out sections. There's no interviews with people. It's just, here's a girl, she's living a happy life. oh no, she smoked a joint, now she's going to be hooked on heroin for the rest of her life. The rest of her short life. It's not the most entertaining thing. It's pretty dry, but it's not the worst. There's things like 50s slang terms, you know, diners, costumes. It's all amazing to watch. It kind of reminded me of like a very dry and boring Twin Peaks with all the diners and jazz and 50s girls doing drugs. Didn't hate it, it had a vibe, but I didn't really get any laughs from me outside of the idea that you smoke a joint once and then you're going to become a heroin addict. Pretty ridiculous, really. Apparently this was meant to be a police training video, the longer version, and then I think it got snipped and released to the public as a way to sort of a way to scare adults away from being too distant with their kids. It's like, be close to your kids, talk to them, otherwise they're going to run away and become heroin addicts. So yeah, I didn't hate this one, it had a vibe, but it's definitely one of the lesser entertaining ones. This one goes into the 5th position. I'd say, yeah, just above sort of drugs, drinking and driving, but below Beyond LSD. See what we've got next, shall we?
Often the introduction comes in the form of a goofball. This is the root of the addict's compulsion. A compulsion to lie, cheat, steal. Even he suggests that they blast a stick or two.
None for the Road is next, and this is either from 57 or 61 depending on where you look. Directed by J.P. Carson and is a 10-minute long drink driving scare film. The film follows through with narration and some melodramatic acting about a family man who has one too many drinks at a party and knocks a little girl over on the drive home. He then gets sentenced to a year in prison and loses his job as penance. Yeah, it's pretty standard, really, pretty bland, forgettable, pretty dull, really, yeah. There's some nice motion graphics that look a bit like Pink Panther. That's about as far as I can go, really. I do find it weird, though. It's meant to be a scare film, but the dude only gets a year in prison for like killing a child. Like, you'd think they'd ham it up a little bit, really, wouldn't you? Like, oh, you're going to spend your life in prison if you drink, drive and kill a girl. No, you're going to get a year, probably be out in 8 months on good behaviour. Like, at least do a little bit more. Dude gets off light, really. I don't know, it just seemed really weird. Yeah, short, forgettable, bottom of the list. Right at the bottom, I reckon. Let's see what we've got next.
The amount of alcohol in your blood can be measured through tests.
I always thought a bad shock would completely sober a drinker. It doesn't.
Next up we have The Trip Back with Florrie Fisher, which is from 1970 and is directed by Ralph Weisinger. I nearly said Walf, keep saying that. And it comes in at 27 minutes long, being the longest one yet. The film stars Florrie Fisher, who'd have guessed, who she toured around doing motivational talks. She's an ex-drug addict, and she just sort of goes around telling kids, like scaring kids off of doing drugs, telling her stories and things like that, bringing awareness to drugs. And yeah, the film is just one of her talks. It's just shot at a high school in New York, I believe, and it's standard in how it's made, you know, it's just shots of her talking. Some of the angles do cut the top of her head off and that, but it's just sort of dull in how it's made. Luckily though, Florrie Fisher really does bring this thing to life. She is a character. Very hyperbolic, just sort of stream of consciousness shouting at these kids about all these crazy drug stories. Some of them I'm not really sure if I believe. She claims she's only known 6 people who started on weed and didn't move to heroin, and they only didn't move to heroin because they all murdered people while stoned and got the electric chair. Now, I don't know about you, but from my experience, when people are stoned, they just sit and stare at the TV eating crisps all night. I don't really think that they have the capacity to go out and murder. But I don't know what they were smoking back in the 50s, 60s, to be completely honest. the slang terms, the vigour, the way she talks, it's kind of endearing and fun to watch, but it does wear a little thin. It's long. It's a long sit. After about 15 minutes, you start getting a little fed up of it. But yeah, I don't know. I didn't mind it. It's gonna go in the middle on the list for sure. I think she influenced something. Let me just double check, because she influenced a character on a TV show, but I've never seen the show before. It's called Strangers with Candy. I don't know, but there's a main character on that show based on her, so she's left a mark in culture and history. Definitely. I can see why. She's a fun character. Yeah, this is going at number 5 at the moment, just behind Beyond LSD. Because, yeah, it does wear a little thin. There's only so much of this woman just shouting at you that I can take before I get a little like, alright, come on, let's do something different now. Next up, the last one. Last short, anyway, I believe. Let's see what it is.
And she will always be stiff, but it doesn't make any difference because she is a raving maniac and her prognosis is nil. Now, I mean, you say some of them smoke and don't need psychiatric help. Well, I have 6 people that I counted friends who use marijuana, and they never did graduate to heroin. You know why? Because on marijuana, they committed crimes of passion and were electrocuted before they got a chance to get hooked on horse.
Lastly, we have Users and Losers from 1971, directed by Sid Davis, and coming in at 17 minutes. This one's a little more narrative based. We get a kid who is trying to get money together to buy drugs off for another kid at school. Along the way, he finds the corpse of a girl who's OD'd, and the kid who's dealing at school gets arrested. And then our lead character sort of gets a talking to by an older kid about the dangers of drugs and how bad it can be for you. It has a fun start, definitely has a fun start. The narrator says some ridiculous stuff and it has a real nice energy to it. But when you get to the bit with the older kid over-explaining everything, saying how if you smoke weed, you're gonna do heroin, you know the fallacy, it's been mentioned a lot in this. It gets pretty old and pretty dry, to be honest. The kid also says that weed has no medicinal benefits whatsoever, which obviously has been disproven in later years, you know, things like CBD oil, pain relief, cancer relief and things like that. Obviously, they didn't know that back then, it's just kind of funny to see it now. And at the end, after this big long lecture from this kid, our lead finds his brother huffing glue for some reason, and we get some crazy editing, and it ends there. It's a mixed bag, this one, you know. The bit with the kid talking just goes on and on and on and on, but the beginning and end are quite entertaining, to be honest. The music's really good as well, some nice heavy guitar stuff into that. As a scare film though, I don't know, it seems pretty tame. I guess the most shocking thing about it is how young all the kids look in it. They're easily like 13 and younger. So I'm guessing that's sort of the shocking part of it, that kids that age would want to buy drugs and such. Yeah, it's middle of the road, this one. I'm going to put it below Laurie Fisher, I think, which I think is where it belongs, really. Yeah, it's okay, not the worst. So, that's all 11 short films that are on this disc. So, let's move on to see if there's anything else on the disc that's worth discussing.
Mitch is all business. The free ride is over. If David wants more reds, it'll cost him.
Some scientists who have studied the effects of pot smoking say it's very bad for you. Others say it's not. But one thing they do agree on, it isn't good for you. We'll have to... If you blow pot, you take a chance of blowing your whole future.
So there we have it then. All 11 films in this collection taken a look at. Honestly, none of them were absolutely awful. I didn't hate any of them. Some of them are better than others, don't get me wrong. Curious Alice being my favourite of the bunch. Because, well, it's animated for one, and I've got a real soft spot for animation, but it really leans into the trippy. Also, I watched it with friends, so maybe that helped a little bit as well. I watched all the other ones on my own, and yeah, maybe they weren't quite as entertaining as they could have been in a solo setting. The worst one was definitely None for the Road. I can't even remember what happened in that one right now. It's not horrible from what I recall, it's just bland and didn't really entertain, I guess. Didn't really entertain me. It probably works fine as a PSA, I don't know, but it didn't entertain me. The running theme for these films seemed to be, if you smoke weed once, you'll do heroin. Kids only do drugs because the parents don't talk to them enough, and peer pressure. And also, if you do acid, it probably will send you insane. Of course, all normal things to think after watching drug PSAs. There's some fun era-specific stuff in this, you know, the sets, music, costumes, some of the visual effects and things like that. It's all fun and very charming to see, I'd say. The prints vary from absolutely battered to stable at best, I'd say. But it's amazing that a lot of these films have survived over the years, to be honest, because these films won't have been made with longevity in mind. They'll have just been made to get out there, to scare the kids, and forget about them. So it's nice that they exist still. And while we're here, there is one more thing on this disc. Now I'm going to have to double check what it's called, because I keep forgetting. It's called Drug Stories, Narcotics, Nightmares, and Hallucinogenic Hell Rides. And what this is a mixtape of scare films from AGFA. And I was hoping it was new stuff, but unfortunately it's stuff that we've already seen in this collection. It does start with something new, where a drug dealer tries to sell like drugs to 5-year-olds, which is quite funny. But then after that, it kicks off with stuff that we've already seen. I'm going to list them now. I'm going to have to read these because I keep forgetting which ones are in it. Users and Losers, we start with, then it's LSD 25, The Bottle and the Throttle, then it's LSD, Insight or Insanity, and we end on The Trip Back with Florrie Fisher in its entirety. So yeah, it's an 80-minute compilation, really. It chooses some of the better ones. It chooses some of the ones I rated relatively highly. No Curious Alice, which is a bit of a shame. And what else is a bit of a shame is that it's not new stuff, because I did hope that it was just a bunch of stuff that they just crammed together, offcuts and bits from this and that. But no, it is just what we've seen. To be honest though, it's probably a good way of watching a collection of these in one go, maybe with friends or something like that. Not an awful inclusion, just wish it was something new that we'd not seen before. Okay, let's check out the packaging on this one then. It's nice, honestly. I like the slipcover. The face on the front is striking, and this was one of the first 101 AGFA collection films that I remember seeing and wanting to get. I had it up on Amazon a few times, umming and ahhing about it. The back reads pretty well, sells the shorts, even if it does make them out to be a little more extreme than they actually are. But yeah, not bad. Does a good job on selling this package, I'd say. Overall then, yeah, this was pretty long one, this one, wasn't it? No, I enjoyed myself with these. I really did enjoy myself. The worst offence on this is some of them are just a little dull or a little too long, I'd say. But really, there's something in all of them that either interested me or entertained me. And plus, I'm a sucker for short films, and especially for PSAs and things like that as well. They just interest me, you know? What I'll do now then is I'm going to do my ranking of all the videos. So I'm just going to read out my worst to best on these. So starting with None for the Road, then it is The Distant Drummer, The Bottle and the Throttle, Drugs, Drinking and Driving, then it's Narcotics, The Decision, Users are Losers, The Trip Back, Beyond LSD, LSD Insight or Insanity, LSD 25, and the number one was, of course, Curious Alice. Of course it was. I definitely preferred the LSD ones, just because they will lend themselves more to trippy visuals and things like that. And also, it even admits that LSD isn't that dangerous, so it's quite funny seeing them try and push it as dangerous. Things like the drink driving ones and the heroin ones, they're a bit more of a serious topic than the acid ones, I'd say, so they come across as a little more serious, a little more dry. I'd recommend this set. I think that it's well worth people's time. Put it on at parties, I reckon. You probably get some good reactions from people on some of these. Not all of them are hits. Maybe do a little bit of vetting beforehand and pick the best few and show your mates. But yeah, it's a nice little package, presented well. Not all of them look amazing, but you know, old prints and such. No, yeah, I'd say there's definitely something here. I mean, all of them I think are just available on YouTube for free, so you could just watch them that way. But if you see this cheap, it's nice having things physically, isn't it? So it's probably worth grabbing if you see it. They often do half price deals on these days, so it's probably worth grabbing in that little offer. So yeah, pretty good one. Enjoyed myself this time. Next time we're moving away from the short films and back to the feature films, for better or worse. Who knows? Who knows? Especially with this next one. As next episode on the AGFA and 101 reviews, we are going to be checking out Treasure of the Ninja. So I'll see you then.